What's up, friend, and welcome back to another video here on the channel. Today we're going to have a look at what I consider to be the top 10 best cards from the new Magic the Gathering set Marvel Spider-Man, or how it's going to be known online through the Omenpaths one for standard constructed. We'll also be looking at what I consider to be the 5 most fun cards to brew around later. But first, let's dive into the bangers here. And we're going to start off strong. This is not going to be in a ranked order. This is what I consider to be the 10 strongest cards. And we're going to start off here with Arachne, Psionic Weaver. This is a 3-mana, 3/3 legendary creature, spider human hero with web slinging 1. So web slinging is a new mechanic from Spider-Man. You may cast a spell for 1 white if you also return a tapped creature you control to its owner's hand. So before we dive further into Arachne, we have to talk about web slinging, because web slinging is, in my opinion, going to be pretty busted. The first obvious thing that comes to mind with web slinging is mana dorks. It doesn't really apply to this card because, it's a white creature, and also, the web slinging is 1 white. So the synergy with a Llanowar Elves, for instance, isn't as obvious with this, but there's another card coming up. It'll be ridiculous with the Llanowar Elves. But still, web slinging 1 is awesome, and especially when you realize, outside of the mana dorks that tap themselves and also generate mana for you, if you have creatures that care about being picked up, it gets kind of wild. And we know there's a lot of ways for us to tap creatures. You don't even have to necessarily attack with a creature in order to tap it. We have all these ways to station them nowadays, screw them, whatever. There's a ton of ways to tap creatures in standard. But if you have a creature that has a strong ETB and you actually benefit from web slinging so you can use it again, it gets crazy. Something like Nurturing Pixie, Stone Pearl Kieran could go hard with this. If you're in other colors, there's a bunch of other good cards with ETBs in general for web slinging. Imagine being able to replay a card like Fear of Missing Out with that valuable ETB effect that allows you to draw a card and then discard a card and things like that. The limit is kind of endless on this web slinging, and there's just so many super powerful ETB effects in standard in all colors that web slinging just really takes advantage of very nicely. So I'm incredibly high on web slinging. But now let's read the card a little bit further on why this is an absolute banger. So as Arachne enters, look at an opponent's hand and choose a card type other than creature, which is already wild, right? You look at the opponent's hand on a hopefully 1-mana 3/3, and then spells of the chosen type cost 1 more to cast. So usually when we see this type of cards that attacks your opponent one way or another, you choose a specific card name or anything of the sort. I don't recall ever seeing spells of the chosen type cost 1 more to cast. And this can be super relevant in standard. You can pick instants, enchantments, sorceries, artifacts. Arachne is just insane, and that on a 1-mana 3/3. That is a crazy card, definitely worthy of being in this top 10 list for sure. Arachne is going to be known on Arena as the Yera and Oski Weaver and Guide, so keep that in mind. So naturally, the next card on my list has to be probably the most powerful web slinging creature, which happens to be Scarlet Spider Ben Reilly. So this is a 3-mana 4/3 spider human hero with web slinging 2. So then you have trample on it and also sensational save. So if Scarlet Spider was cast using web slinging, he enters with X 1/1 counters on him, where X is the mana value of the returned creature. So this is exactly the card that is about to go absolutely insane with the Llanowar Elves. You can literally do turn 1 Llanowar Elves, then tap the Llanowar Elves to make green mana. If you have something like a Stomping Ground in play, which hopefully you have, then you can use the Stomping Ground for red mana. You're literally casting Scarlet Spider on turn 2 with web slinging off of a tapped Llanowar Elf, and it will come in play as a 5/4 creature because it's going to get a 1/1 counter on it. And then if you drop your second land, you also play the Llanowar Elves again, which is just ridiculous. The web slinging in something like this can also be incredibly powerful with warp creatures. I think the best warp creature in red is Nova Hellkite. How I'm kind of envisioning this card is in a Gruul Stompy deck list. So what we see nowadays is a lot of mono green Stompy, Simic Stompy, but I think truly with the power that Scarlet Spider Ben Reilly provides, and perhaps something that curves out into an Oroboroid or whatever, this is going to get just ridiculous. And of course, there's also additional spider synergy you could be looking for. What if we combine this card with something like Spider Punk, which is a card that gives all your other spiders riot, so you can give this thing haste, for instance. I think there's a lot of potential with the set in a Gruul Stompy deck list with maybe some hidden spider synergy. And yeah, the warping with the web slinging and just the Llanowar Elves, the Scarlet Spider Ben Reilly is going to be ridiculous. We're literally looking at a 2-mana 5/4 creature with trample here. What is even going on? It's going to be really strong, and I'm pretty excited. And on top of that, the card is going to be known on Arena as Boris the Spider Rider. Very nice. So the last web slinging card on my list is Spider Sense. 2 mana instant, web slinging for 1 blue, and then you counter target instant spell, sorcery spell, or triggered ability. I think this card is going to become an absolute staple in the sideboard of nearly like any blue deck out there. Countering instants and sorceries is just super valuable in standard with a lot of these like super powerful card advantage spells, board wipes, interaction, you name it. And then you have the upside of also countering a triggered ability. And if you play standard, you know how many of these ETB effects are just running wild right now, especially in like the VV deck and stuff. And the VV deck's also going to be adopting this in the sideboard, I'm sure. But it's also just so great to stop all these like super powerful like ETBs and like buy yourself some time outside of obviously countering interaction, like I said, card draw, all that stuff. And of course, like we have been saying with the web slinging stuff, web slinging can be an upside, right? So imagine being able to like pick up your FOMO again to get another draw the discard trigger, or your Steamcurse Scholar to get another draw the discard trigger. And that's just like what I'm thinking about in like the VV decks. Like Pixie, once again, you can pick up Nurturing Pixie, you can pick up Sunpo Kirin. It's just ridiculous how good web slinging can be. And this is just a fantastic piece of counter magic, and will absolutely become a sideboard staple in standard. And Spider Sense is going to be known on MTG Arena as Detect Intrusion. So for the next card, I kind of want to keep the blue vibes going because we are going to have a look at Hydro-Man, Fluid Felon. For 2 blue mana, you get a 2/2 legendary creature elemental villain. Whenever you cast a blue spell, if Hydro-Man is a creature, he gets +1/+1 until end of turn. At the beginning of your end step, untap Hydro-Man. Until your next turn, he becomes a land and gains tap at blue mana. He's not a creature during that time. So Hydro-Man is just going to be incredibly awesome. Like, not only is this card going to be able to provide you like a good amount of pressure, especially if you have like a lot of these like cantrip effects, for instance, but then once he's done doing that, maybe dealing a little bit of damage, he will turn into a land. And that land is going to allow you to hold up 1 blue mana. Now, 1 blue mana in standard is in a really good spot because we're thinking of cards like Annul, we're thinking of cards like Spell Pierce, we're thinking of cards like Floodmaw, right? But if you have more mana open on top of that, say you had like 1 mana remaining and Hydro-Man is going to give you 2 mana, at that point, the world kind of becomes your oyster, right? You can, if we're thinking about blue cards, you can start holding up like Negates, maybe the new like Spider Sense card, Floodpit Drowners, but think about if you have another color open. Like, think about if you're in like an Izzet Prowess deck or something and you have a red mana open, or if you're in something like Spell Heavy like Dimir deck or something and you can be holding up like good removal spells, or you're doing that in whites and you have like a bunch of flesh creatures. This thing is crazy. I really enjoy this card. I think it's going to be very powerful. I mean, I will also say, I think this is probably like my favorite card in terms of the way it's designed. I think it's very unique and incredibly cool. Yeah, happy to have Hydro-Man on my list. And on MTG Arena, the card is going to be known as Bellion the Parched. Next on my list, I have Spinneret and Spiderling. This is a 1 mana, 1/2 legendary creature spider human hero. Whenever you attack with 2 or more spiders, put a 1/1 counter on Spinneret and Spiderling. Whenever Spinneret and Spiderling deal 4 or more damage, exile the top card of your library, and until the end of your next turn, you may play that card. So this is a lot of text on a 1-drop. It's already like cute if you have some more spider synergy in your deck list and you get that 1/1 counter when they're like attacking with 2 or more spiders. But how I see the card actually like popping off is in combination with combat tricks. Now, combat tricks are actually gaining a lot of popularity in standard once again. Like, we have that, I refer to the deck as Woltsea Green. It's that like green deck list that has these giant growths, Tifa limit breaks, like that type of stuff in there. There's also a Simic deck out there that's trying to do something very similar. We're seeing some like green decks really adopting these like combat tricks. And once again, like I said with the Ben Reilly card, I think there's true potential in order to get out of the mono green, potentially get out of the Simic, and go back into the Gruul. And I think this is good payoff for that as well. But Spinneret and Spiderling, even if you're working with like 1/1 counters in order to grow the card, or you're working with like Roboroids, you know what I mean, map tokens, Innkeeper's Talent, like ways to grow the card outside of just working with spiders. I think there's a lot of potential there. There's still really like good combat tricks. Also in like specifically red, right? Like, we still have 1 mana cards that add 3 power onto this creature. And then really, what I think makes the card fantastic is that it says until the end of your next turn, you may play that card. So you can take it with you into the next turn, even if you can cast it a turn that you're like actually exiling the card, which is really nice. So truly a lot of potential in here. I think Gruul Stompy is looking really incredible. So, and this card is going to be part of that. But also just like any spider deck that you're trying to like make, it will also slot into that perfectly. So Spinneret and Spiderling is going to be known on MTG Arena as Rizna, the Spider Crowned, which Man, I love this art. You know, anytime I see like a Reckless Betty, I'm down. I see the Reckless Guilt behind that. This is actually one of those cards that I'm like, yeah, I'm glad that this is what it is on Arena. It is what it is, you know? All right, so let's keep the aggro trend going here with the next card, Araña, Heart of the Spider. This is a 3-mana 3/3 legendary creature spider human hero. Whenever you attack, put a 1/1 counter on target attacking creature. Whenever a modified creature you control deals combat damage to a player, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. So I think Araña slots beautifully into like any like Boros aggro deck list that is working with especially the mouse package because of the Valiant triggers. I think this is going to be a great source of card advantage in those deck lists. I think it curves out beautifully too, right? Because if you have a 2-drop into Araña on 3, you can attack with that 2-drop, and Araña does say whenever you attack. So the card itself doesn't have to attack in order for you to get an like effect on it. You can immediately put a 1/1 counter on that creature, and if it connects to the face, you're exiling a card. I think there's just a lot of potential in here. I think Boros Mice is slowly creeping up on the competitive scene as well. I think Boros Mice had like a recent like top 8 or something like that, and that's just with the mouse package. I think they start adopting this and maybe leaning a little bit more into modified synergy. I think it's gonna do a lot, and of course Boros also has fantastic mana on top of that. So yeah, Boros is going to go places, and I think Araña is going to be a part of it because it reads just like a very, very strong card. And Araña is going to be known on MTG Arena as Gloria, the Great Armorer. So the next card is one that I'm personally really, really excited about. You guessed it, Carnage, Crimson Chaos. 4-mana, 4/3 legendary creature with trample. When Carnage enters, return target creature card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains this creature attacks each combat if able, and when this creature deals combat damage to a player, sacrifice it with a Mayhem cost of 2. I am so incredibly excited for Mayhem. I was a big fan of Madness when it was around, and Mayhem is kind of like a fixed version of Madness. So with these Mayhem cards, you have to discard them, and then you can play them the same turn, but they are limited to their time restrictions. Unlike Madness, that wasn't the case. So you do still have to cast this creature during like one of your main phases. But I think Carnage is just awesome. In Carnage, we're looking for cards with good ETBs. You can think about something like FOMO, or if you're building a more aggressive version, you can think about like Brynhildr's. I could also just see the card pop off with Death Touchers, like this in combination with a Cecil, or the new card, what's it called? The Sunset Saboteur, there you go. Or something like a Preacher of the Schism, anything that has like a strong attack effect. I just love it. I think there's a lot of potential in Reckless Mayhem. It's going to be one of my favorite decks that I'm going to be building. And Carnage, Crimson Chaos is going to be ridiculous in it. I see true potential here. Like I said, strong ETB cards, great like attackers, Death Touchers. I'm hyped. I'm really hyped. And this card is going to be known on MTG Arena as Desecrax, Gift of Servitude. Next on my list, I have an absolute banger for you Green Stompy enjoyers out there. Sandman, Shifting Scoundrel. This is a 3-mana Sand Elemental Villain legendary creature. Sandman's power and toughness are each equal to the number of lands you control. Sandman can be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. And there is also an activated ability where for 5 mana you can return this card and target land card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Now I can see this card slot into so many decks. Mono Green Stompy, Simic like mid-range. Especially Simic mid-range can have some really good value there because you're also working with map tokens, and perhaps you have like landfall triggers that you care about, so you may be running Fabled Passages. Because if you want to return this card, you do have to also target a land card. So it's going to be really working nicely with something like a Fabled, or if you've somehow discarded a land into your graveyard, or you found a way to mill one, or whatever of the sort, which is also potential with this card. It can also be in a mill deck if that's what you're looking for. But I see it more in like a traditional Stompy deck. It keeps growing as you're putting more lands onto the battlefield, and I think there's also a lot of value to be had in cannot be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. And power 2 or less is actually super relevant in Standard. There's a lot of creatures, especially in something like Dimir, that are all power 2 or less. And this just kind of making it so that it can't just be chump blocked. You can grow it just because by playing lands, but also once again, so many ways to put 1/1 counters on things. Green is just in a really good spot, and I also see potential in this in that Gruul Stompy deck that I'm kind of like cooking up in my mind during this set review. But like I said, Mono Green, Simic mid-range, perhaps like other like landfall coded deck lists where this can go absolutely crazy in, and that buyback potential is just really what pushes the card over the top for me. So really excited for this one, and it's going to be known on MTG Arena as the Scouring Storm Soul. So the next card I am a bit afraid of, and I hope I'm wrong, but I don't know, man. Electro, Assaulting Battery. This is a 3-mana 2/3 legendary creature human villain With flying, you don't lose unspent red mana as steps and phases end. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, add red mana. When Electro leaves the battlefield, you may pay X, and when you do, he deals X damage to target player. So there's a lot to be said about this card. Just to me, like the number one thing about this card that makes me so worried is that it reads like one of those cards that's going to be broken. We still have Artist Talent, Legal, and Standard as well, which I think it goes absolutely crazy with, because that card already has a lot of Storm potential. This is a lot of Storm potential. And of course, in the future, like if you think further ahead, we also have the Firebending from Avatar, which the Firebending Avatar basically gives you red mana during your combat step, and then after your combat step, it's gone, right? Electro prevents you from losing that mana, as you don't lose unspent red mana as steps and phases end. So the future for Electro is already looking good if you're trying to do like Firebending shenanigans. But the current potential, like I said, lies within Artist Talent, and of course, Vivi. I don't know how they're gonna do it. Part of me thinks that they are just definitely gonna want it because like the store potential with it is just crazy. That's all that Vivi is looking for to do. And of course, if you have generated so much mana, you find a way to make Electro leave the battlefield, and especially with the insane amount of mana the Vivi deck already generates, making this dude deal X damage to a target player, if you can just pay X, like what's gonna happen? Like these Vivi decks are gonna like deal 50 damage to us? I don't know. I really hope I'm wrong and they think this thing isn't necessary, but I feel like somebody's gonna break it and I'm worried. So I'm gonna play it safe and shove it in my top 10 list here, even though I'm not exactly sure yet how. But I'm sure somebody will figure it out, you know? And this thing is going to be known on Arena as Bayo, Irritable Instructor. And last, but certainly not least, our new savior, especially for any deck list that did not get a shock, Multiversal Passage. This is a land, and as this land enters, you choose a basic land type that you may pay 2 life. If you don't, it enters tapped. This land is the chosen type. So this is going to be really sweet for, like I said, any deck that did not get a shock, any deck that is currently suffering because they didn't have good mana left. Think about Azorius, think about Rectals, think about Selesnya. I'm so grateful that we finally have another land, and maybe we don't have to suffer wanting to play these decks because the mana is so bad. You do have to pay 2 life, but I mean, if you don't have shock anyways, what does it matter? Like, you have 2 life to spare. And of course, you choose a basic land type and it's a chosen type. So also fantastic synergy with the Verges. We needed this. We really needed this. And I'm just grateful, truly. I'm just grateful. Like there's just so many decks that are going to be picking this up. It's also going to be known under the same name on MTG Arena. And yeah, this is a blessing, honestly. We may no longer have to suffer trying to play Rectals or something. So up next, we're going to have a look at 5 cards that I think are going to be incredibly fun to brew around. And absolutely, you can look forward to seeing any of these cards in the videos in the upcoming week. So the first card here, Parker Luck, 3 mana enchantment. At the beginning of your end step, 2 target players each reveal the top card of their library. They each lose life equal to the mana value of the card revealed by the other player. Then they each put the card they revealed into their hand. So I'm trying to build like a mono black or like Orzhov deck list where I'm playing room cards. So imagine like I'm playing against mono red. They reveal Razorkin Needlehead, I lose 2 life. I reveal Unholy Annex, you suffer. Or something like Dollmaker Shop, you suffer as well. And if I combine that maybe with like Snores, you know, to keep that trend going a little bit, you can make just a very evil, incredibly fun deck list that is going to punish your opponent for you having a lot of these like super high CMC cards in your deck list. And I just think it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really excited for it. The card's going to be known on MTG Arena as Duskmourn's Claim, so keep an eye out for that. Yeah, this one's going to be a banger, I'm sure. Next on my list is Gwenom Remorseless. This is a 5 mana 4/4 legendary creature, a symbiote spider hero with Death Touch and Lifelink. And whenever Gwenom attacks until end of turn, you may look at the top card of your library anytime and may play cards from the top of your library. If you cast a spell this way, pay life equal to its mana value rather than pay its mana cost. So I think this is actually a really strong card, but why it's not on my top 10 list is kind of because it's a 5-drop, right? Like a 5-drop that also needs to attack. I feel like the odds of that happening may not be super high. I do like the fact that it has Death Touch and Lifelink, but I think with the way the current standard format is shaped and how like fast it is, it may just not be capable of like going crazy for you. but I still think it's worth trying to build a deck around. It just reminds me of the good old like Bola Citadel days. The way I'm probably going to try to build this is actually have it be very similar to Bola Citadel, where perhaps I'll use something like Umbracle or Zealot to surveil cards I don't want from the top of my deck into the graveyard so I can keep going. Maybe I'll combine it with, you know, like Blood Artist effects so that I can still gain life and I can keep going and don't like, you know, accidentally lose all my life points trying to cast my spells from the top of the library and just flood the board and find a way to win the game. Pretty excited for that. It is a 5-drop, so I don't know if you've seen like my recent videos, but I did make a deck around that 3-mana Reanimator spell from Edge of Eternities that brings back a 5-drop. So perhaps that's a way for me to get this card into play faster. And I kind of just want to treat it in like similar to Bola Citadel and just go crazy. So that's going to be a really fun deck to build. You can absolutely look forward to seeing that on the channel as well. And Gwenem is going to be known on MTG Arena as Egrix, the Bile Bulwark. So up next on my list, now you guys know I love a good Simic pile, so of course I had to include Jackal, 2-mana 1/1, legendary creature, human scientist villain with trample. Whenever you cast a creature spell with mana value equal to Jackal's power, copy that spell, except the copy isn't legendary, then put a moment counter on Jackal. So I was actually really tempted to shove Jackal in like my top 10, but I really wasn't sure how it would play out. So I figured I'll do him justice and shove him in my like favorite brews to play around. I'm hoping I can get to a spot where this is copying Ouroboros, but I think it's already going to be really cool if you play this thing out on 2 and like on 3, you're going to do something like copy like a Hemosimic Might or something. Perhaps you can cheat those copies if you grow Jackal through like 1/1 counters instead of having to like cast a creature spell with mana value equal to Jackal's power. I haven't really cooked the deck up yet, but I will be. I will be. I think there's a lot of potential in this card, and Simic is really strong right now regardless. So let's see what crazy things we can do with Jackal. I'm at least very excited to accept the challenge and build a cool deck. And Jackal is going to be known on MTG Arena as Juneth, Reviver of the Hive. Alright, so next on my list, you know I couldn't do you guys dirty by not including this little guy. Like, of course, we have to include Fleam. Let's first look at the front side here. Goban, Gene Splice Savant. This is a 2-mana 1/1 legendary creature human scientist villain, which cannot be blocked. Whenever Goban deals combat damage to a player, he connives. For 4 mana, in Grixis colors, you get to transform Goban, activate only as a sorcery, and you get the one and only Fleam, which is a 3/3 legendary creature goblin human villain with flying and menace, and spells you cast from your graveyard cost 2 less to cast. Each non-land card in your graveyard has mayhem. The mayhem cost is equal to its mana cost. So I'm pretty much like a fan of these discount effects. I think Fleam is a little bit like suspicious because, you know, obviously it is quite vulnerable to interaction, but I don't care. I'm gonna make it work somehow for you guys. You know I accept the challenge, and Fleam is going to be exactly that. Like, if anybody is going to make a Fleam deck that's gonna work, it's gonna be me. I'm not exactly sure how. Like, I really do love the front side of Fleam. I think there's a lot of power in unblockability, especially when you connive. That means the card's gonna grow. That means there's gonna be good filtering. Like, perhaps I'm gonna do this in like a Grixis like mini Reanimator deck list. Maybe a little bit like Delirium synergy. I'm not entirely sure. I'm gonna be cooking something up for you guys. Not sure yet, but you will be seeing Fleam on this channel. You can take my word for it. So I just love this guy. Like, if you have any ideas on what you're gonna do with Fleam or how you feel like you're gonna make a Fleam deck, let me know in the comments. I'll see if I can get some inspiration from you guys. The last card on my list of things that I'm excited to brew around, not necessarily the greatest things, but just really fun. Eddie Brock, legendary creature, human hero villain, 3-mana 3/3. When Eddie Brock enters, return target creature card with mana value 1 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. You can also spend 6 mana in Junt colors to transform Eddie, activate only as a sorcery. You get the one and only baddie Venom Lethal Protector, 6 mana 5/5, menace, trample, haste. Whenever Venom attacks, you may sacrifice another creature. If you do draw X cards, then you may put a permanent card with mana value X or less from your hand onto the battlefield, where X is the sacrifice creature's mana value. Well, in an ideal world, I'm playing this in like a Junt sacrifice deck list, and I can actually transform Eddie and get Venom out of it. That would be really cool. But you know, I love a good sacrifice pile, and I just had to include some like sacrifice shenanigans in here, of course. I think there's actually quite some potential in Eddie. 3-mana 3/3 is already, you know, good stats. being able to return a target creature mana value 1 or less is already really nice from some like really good Sephiroth or like sacrifice chains. Imagine being able to bring back one of those creatures that when it dies, you leave another creature behind. Those all make really good sacrifice targets and really just allows you to get to those Sephiroth flips or surveil super deep into your deck or work with Swerve on them. I mean, of course, I will try to get the Venom in the deck list because it's been a while since I've played some Jund, but I like the card. I'll do my best to see what I can do to build around it. I also think it's a pretty cool card to like pick up and replay. I'm not sure what the potential is there. Like maybe something with like nurturing pixies, you know what I mean? But I hope to get the Venom Lethal Protector at some point. I don't necessarily want to say Corvold vibes, a little bit. So I think it's really cool. I think there's a lot of synergy in like bringing back 1 mana value 1 or less creatures. And hey, maybe even in like an Insidious root stack or something. I don't know. I think there's some potential in this card. And there's a lot of flexibility with it too, so I'm looking forward to building something cool around this, and I do want to have that Venom in play for sure. Yes. So anyways, guys, that concludes my top 10 best cards from Spider-Man or through the Omenpaths, and also a little bonus of like 5 fun cards that I'm looking forward to build around and you can anticipate seeing on this channel. I hope you enjoyed it. This video goes live and you're watching it. I'll be streaming the streamer event on Twitch. Twitch.tv/Ashlizzlle. Link is in the description below as well. You can find me there. We're going to have a really good time playing with new cards, and I look really forward to giving you the best Spider-Man content or through the Omenpaths that I can provide. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what your favorite cards are, and I'll see you in the next video.